This is Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it's time for the Atlanta Football Party, only on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Atlanta Football Party. I'm your host, Jarvis Davis, the guy that you want to call wrong, but I'm always right in the end. And riding with me today, I got my main man, Aaron Freeman, host of Locked On Falcons, baby. And I got my guy, my main dude, my main dude, Dylan Matthews, who is the host of the Hometown Take on 92.9 The Game, sitting in on this live edition of the Atlanta Football Party. Really appreciate you guys for hopping on with us. I want to start off by saying thank you for making the Atlanta Football Party your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure that you leave us a 5-star review. We appreciate that from you in advance. Atlanta Football Party is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Coming up on today's show, we'll discuss if the blame finger needs to be pointed at Zach Robinson for the second half of that Commanders game. And you mean to tell me that I have to become a Saints fan on Sunday? Come on, dog. But first, the Falcons have found themselves in a situation where they have to depend on another team to have a chance to get into the postseason. And guys, we know that's the worst position to be in. And we know that if the Commanders had a chance, if they would have pulled out that game and against the Washington Commanders, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But Aaron, we talked about it. We said it on Locked On Falcons. We had this conversation that it's probably going to come down to the Saints having to beat the Bucs and the Falcons having to get a win against the Carolina Panthers in order to be able to get into the playoffs, man. So what say you that has come to fruition? I know you're not surprised because you're the Falcons prophet and all that stuff, but what say you that actual situation has come to light right now?
Well, you know, as you said, Jarvis, it is not a surprise. Even when the Falcons were 6-3, I was like, it's going to come down to week 18. It's just that's just how the Falcons roll. There's no chance that they'll put this division away, you know, in week 13 or whatever people were eyeing at that point in the season. And so, you know, as you say, Jarvis, you know, being the Falcons prophet, like, you know, seeing these prophecies, you know, the prophecy was foretold. Yes. I think with this week 18 game, like, it's not a surprise that we're here. You know, you went into last week's game against Washington knowing that the Falcons were the underdog in that game. And, you know, this was just kind of, if chalk goes the way that it goes, like, this is probably what was going to happen at the end of the season, given how things had sort of played out in that early December stretch with the team struggling and whatnot. So, you know, the fact that we're here now is like, okay, yeah, you know, this is not a surprise that we're at this point.
And I think one of the things that, and that's truly unfortunate, because when you think about the way they were, you know, sweeping the team that you know for a fact was going to be the only team to be able to compete in a division, and being, you know, and also having Kirk Cousins playing the way he was at the time, I don't think anyone saw how things went. You know, one touchdown pass and 9 interceptions within a month and a half or so. And here we are talking about Michael Pennix being the starter of this particular team. But I think for me, I was just in a space where this is, you got to win the game. You got to keep the main thing right now. Like, you're facing the Carolina Panthers. You can't really be concerned about what's going on between the Saints and the Bucs, because they're going to be playing right at the same time. So I'm sure some minion in the Falcons organization is going to be keeping up with what's going on with their team. And I'm not going to call out the person who I think it is, because I'm not going to be petty today. I'm not going to throw strays, you know, and all that stuff. But Dylan, for you, did you see this team being where they are right now, coming down to the last week of the season like Aaron did?
I honestly thought it would come down to the last week of the season. I was just hoping that we would control our own destiny. And I honestly had a good feeling. Obviously, at 6-3, we all had a good feeling that the Falcons would at least be in a position, like I said, to control their own destiny going into the final week, because we knew the Falcons had a tough stretch when it came to taking on the Chargers, then the Commanders, and then all those teams back to back to back. So we knew there was a tough test and a tough road in front of the Falcons, but just how you lost some of those games down the stretch, the Saints game, i.e. with Younghoe Koo missing some kicks that should have been made, Kirk Cousins basically single-handedly losing you the Chargers game, and if we keep it in a buck, and then obviously what happened in the Commanders game that we'll talk about here in a couple of minutes. But I did think it was going to come down to the last week of the season. I just didn't think it would look the way it looks now. I thought we would be a just winning year scenario, which we were a game away from being in. But I did ultimately think that the Buccaneers would bounce back because they did have a favorable second half of the schedule. And I thought with the Falcons, tougher second half of the schedule, it would be kind of that neck and neck race that came down to the end of the season. I just didn't think we would need help from the Aints to get into the postseason at this point.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part because, even given what Kirk Cousins did, like you mentioned, and you talking about keeping it funky, even in that Chargers game, I felt like they still had a chance to win that game.
They did.
They did. And you threw 4 interceptions. That's unheard of. That's so unheard of. So it just goes to show you how well your defense have been playing. And, Lord knows, wasted sacks and multiple sacks per game, and back-to-back games and stuff like that, man. That just makes me so sad. I'm so sad that those performances got wasted because you couldn't figure out a way to get the offense moving, with Kirk Cousins under center, and you kept turning the ball over. So I think that was a huge disappointment, that you are in a space where you had to kind of say, all right, man, this is not where we need to be, and this is not where you thought they would be outside of Aaron, in the last week of the season. Now, Aaron, I think one of the things that I find it ironic is that here you are having to beat, your NFC South rival, the Panthers. Yep. Okay. That's kind of how the NFL wants it to play out at the end of the year. And like Dylan mentioned earlier, you talking about the Saints, having to beat the Bucs. Do you find it ironic, or is this just kind of like a falconing type situation that Raheem Morris has found himself in?
I mean, this is falconing at its finest.
Yes, the prime,
like I've made peace with it. Like after Sunday night last week, it was like, oh, we need the Saints to do us a solid, and that's how the Falcons make the. Oh, okay, they're not going to do that. So that's it. So it's fine. Like I made peace with it. Like the idea of the New Orleans Saints actually going out there with Spencer Rattler or whoever the heck is starting quarterback for them and beating the Bucs and that helping the Falcons. I mean, I would love to see it. It would be hilarious, but it's not going to happen. So it's just like, it is what it is. So, the fact that it kind of came down to this, it's like, yeah, this feels right. Like every year it feels like the Falcons and Saints have multiple opportunities to ruin each other's season, either directly by beating the other team. And like, I remember last year when the Falcons came out of their bye and beat the Saints, and everybody was like, well, that's the end of the Saints season. And then Falcons were in the driver's seat to win the division. And of course they choked that away. And then it came back to them playing the Saints in week 18. And it was like, okay, the Saints get a chance to sort of end this Desmond Ridder era very ceremoniously, as they did in beating the brakes off of the Falcons. And so it's just one of those things where both of these teams always feel like they're going to take a shot at the other one when they get that opportunity. And this, that's why I don't think it's ironic at all. It's just like, this is just fated every single season that one of these teams gets to ruin the other team's season.
And the Falcons weren't given a chance when they faced the Carolina Panthers when they were undefeated, and everybody was like, oh yeah, the Panthers about to beat the brakes off of them. And then next thing you know, Cam Newton takes that L right there at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So it's just, I think you're spot on, man. Falconing at its absolute finest. Now, Dylan, I want to read you a quote that my man Raheem Morris came out and said this week. He says, quote, "The guys who fear failure never have success. I'm not going to be considered that guy. And when it doesn't go right, I'm not going to run away from it or point blame at anybody else. I'm going to take it head on. I've got big shoulders. It's fair criticism, rightful criticism. I apologize to our fans for not being able to get that done. But I promise you, we will get it done sooner." Does it make you feel any better that he apologized for the L?
It doesn't make me feel better because you still lost the game in a game against the Commanders that You had a chance to win. Let's just be honest. You had a legitimate shot to win that game. Raheem Morris caused
like
that
two
timeout.
evenly matched teams, right?
Right, exactly. Raheem Morris caused that timeout after the completion of Darnell Mooney. That could be a whole different ball game. You get closer. You get in Riley Patterson's actual range, and then you take a realistic try at a field goal, and hopefully you make it, and you're walking off winners. And you're not in the position we are in now, where we need the Saints to beat the Buccaneers team that they're probably not going to beat, and for us to get to the postseason. So it doesn't make me feel better, but I do think that I'm just going to keep it a buck. I've seen a lot of people on social media.
That's what Atlanta Football Party actually means in Atlanta translations. Exactly. Keep it a buck. Atlanta Football Party means keep it a buck. So go ahead. Continue.
So a lot of people on social media have been unrightfully calling for Raheem Morris's job. And I don't agree with that at all. He owned up to it. He showed accountability. Jarvis, I see you dropping your head. All I'm going to say is this. I don't know what else you want that man to do. Like, I really don't know what more you want from him. I don't understand. He owned up to it. And I get some people are going to say, oh, well, he said this after the game Sunday, and then he actually took accountability on Monday. There's so many emotions racing through a coach's head, a player's head right after the game on Sunday. And they haven't had fully time to process what happened out there on that field, and they haven't had a time to really gather their thoughts and give an eloquent response to the question that someone may be asking. So that to me is bogus. He owned up to it. He took responsibility, took accountability. He said it. You just read the quote. He knows he messed up. He apologized to the fans. There's nothing else Raheem Morris can do at this point. It's water under the bridge. It still hurts. That's why it doesn't make me feel any better to answer your question. But I think, again, Raheem Morris, this shouldn't be looked at as Raheem Morris needs to be gone. Raheem Morris to be fired. It doesn't need to be that. But he does need to obviously fix that and fix his time management issues, because down the road, if it keeps happening, then it's a different conversation. But while it doesn't make me feel any better, I do appreciate the fact that he owned up to it and that he realizes he did make a mistake and it cost the team the game.
First of all, the people who are calling for this man's job want this organization to be the Cleveland Browns.
Thank you.
And no need to explain further. Aaron, my brother, as far as you heard the quote and you heard Raheem Morris' explanation right after the game, and you heard this was kind of a couple of days into the practice week and his response to the whole time clock management situation. Do you feel better that he apologized?
I mean, I'm in the same boat as Dylan. Like, no, I don't feel better, because I would, the only way I would feel good is if the Falcons had won the game, right? Like that's it. And as Dylan said, like, you can't, unless one of y'all are hiding on a time machine or something like that. I don't think we can
call up the Avengers, see if they still got theirs that they use.
Yeah. So until time travel is invented, like, we can't really solve that problem. So I can't feel good about him apologizing. But in the world of, like, it is what it. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, like, you apologize. I appreciate it. I appreciate you doing the very human thing of owning your mistakes. That's all I can really ask from another human being when it's very obvious that you mess up and you apologize and you do say the thing. Is that going to make people feel better about how the situation played out? No, but at the same time, like, I'm not going to sit here holding on to some lingering resentment from a football game that was played 4 days ago. It's like, on to the next one. You got to beat the Panthers, get the winning record, finish the season strong, have a good showing, and let's see what you do next year. Like, that's all I can really ask for in this situation. So as far as what Raheem Morris can do in this situation, what he did, I think, is the right thing to do. And so, like, I'm not sitting here, on a Thursday still mad about a game that was played on Sunday.
Yeah, man. I'm with you on that. Like, because I found myself, like, last night still kind of like mulling over whether or not I'm still upset. And I came to the conclusion that I'm not upset. And when I read this quote, I really felt like there's some brevity that comes into play when you hear a coach come out and actually apologize for doing something wrong, right? Because coming off the Arthur Smith era, we know that wasn't the case. Arthur is not apologizing to anyone. Daddy was a billionaire, so billionaires don't apologize for jack. So to hear him come out and say something like that, it doesn't make me feel better. I'm with you all on that from that standpoint. but it does kind of tell me about the human being. And I really care about that. I know a lot of people don't care about that. They care about results. I want wins. I want to get in the playoffs and all that stuff. But I care about it from the standpoint of like, okay, I understand Ra's, thought process. And as long as I'm able to understand your thought process, throughout from a week to week standpoint, I'm like, okay, I give you a little grace because I feel like Raheem Morris is still a good head coach. I feel like he can still do something for this organization that they haven't done in 7 years, and that is getting them into the postseason. Might not happen this year. More than likely, it's not going to happen this year. But I feel like he can do it, and I feel like he has those capabilities. So I feel like the Falcons are in a space where, hey man, this is a situation where you didn't see yourself in. I know Aaron did. Just make sure y'all make
Prophet saw it. He knew it.
You know what I'm saying? The prophet saw it. You know what I'm saying? He's a prophet. So, like if he doesn't prophesy, you know what I'm saying? He's a liar.
Well, the key
Aaron, you got a lot of numbers, bro. You got any lot of numbers you can share?
No. The key to being a Falcons prophet is always expect the other shoe to drop. So that's basically, I remember in 2015 when they got off to 5-0, and I'm just like, something bad is going to happen eventually. Like this is too good to be true with the Atlanta Falcons, and they finished that season 8-8. And so I was like, okay, that's it. Yeah. So that's basically me. Like when they get off to these good starts in the seasons, like something bad is going to happen because it's just you can't have nice things if you're an Atlanta Falcon fan.
Absolutely, man. We totally understand. But speaking of not having nice things, there are a lot of people that said that Zach Robinson tinkled down his leg in the second half of that game. We'll discuss that next. I have to start off by letting you know that this episode of the Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by FanDuel. Folks, the NFL playoffs are almost here, and we don't know if the Falcons are going to be in it, but it's not too late to get in the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So guess what, guys? If you want to hop in on the Panthers, whatever the spread is, they're going to cover, man. Come on now. Let's go. I promise you, man. The Falcons, Michael Pennix, he about to go off, baby. Let's go. It's so many ways you can pick up a W. I love betting on players, which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's so exciting. I'm telling you, Bijan Robinson, put the money on that, man. He's going to score it. I got you, bro. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com for your chance to win $250 in bonus bets. Let me say that again. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Guys, we understand the half that Bijan Robinson had. It was amazing. First half of that game against the Washington Commanders, I feel like it was a reckoning. And it was just the way he was just putting on the display, the quickness, the short space, athleticism, and just making linebackers just look stupid, making Bobby Wagner look like he just doesn't belong in the NFL anymore. I might be a little bit hyperbole, but y'all know what I'm getting at. Y'all understand what Bijan Robinson brings to the table. It's another Falcon Prophet thing too, right there. My main man, Aaron Freeman. I'm telling y'all, man, the man is the real deal, Jack. Y'all need to get on. But for me, Dylan, I think there was some. As part of the second half of the game, Zach Robinson got a lot of criticism, and for me, I feel like the way the game was going, just from a possession standpoint, how many possessions you're going to get, and the way your defense played in the second half of the game, I felt like that kind of dictated how he called plays in the second half of that game. What say you, man? Are you on the board with, hey, man, you shouldn't have abandoned the running game because you weren't down by that many points, or once this game started getting half in the third quarter, or do you feel like it was right for Zach Robinson to kind of switch it up a little bit and start leaning on Michael Pennix a little bit more with his arm?
I'm glad you said what you said because I wanted to make sure I wasn't tripping. Because here's how I feel. Do I think he went away from Bijan Robinson a little bit too much? Yes. I think there could have been a little bit better of a mix of pass and run in the second half because Bijan was just working so well in the first half. But the game did change in the second half. You had the Falcons defense. I think the Falcons defense deserves more blame for what they did in the second half than what Zach Robinson did and how he called the game in the second half. The Falcons defense had no answer for Jaden Daniels. Not even.
You look like Superman out there, like literally.
It was really just Jaden Daniels because Brian Robinson didn't do that much in the second half. It was really just Jaden Daniels. Whether he was running all over you, he made some passes, he made some throws as well. But what Jaden Daniels did to you in the running game, I mean, the Falcons got what? They ran 9 plays before that final touchdown drive to tie the game. They had 9 plays. They had a 3-and-out and they had a 6-and-out. So Zach Robinson seeing that and seeing how the trend was going in that second half, he knew, oh, man, we got to make sure we score here. And with the time the Commanders are already chewing up on this clock, we got to start throwing the ball a little bit more because if we don't, put some hitch in our step or put some giddy up in it, we might not get the ball back to be able to go out and tie this game. So I do not blame, to answer your question, I do not blame Zach Robinson for what he did and how he approached the second half. Now, again, I wish he would have maybe blended the run a little bit more, but I understand why he felt like he needed to lean on Michael Pennix a little bit more in that second half because the defense just could not stop Jaden Daniels in that Commanders rushing game and the way the Commanders were just eating up clock on their 2 possessions, specifically their first 2 possessions in that third quarter. So I do not blame Zach Robinson. I blame the Falcons defense more for their performance in the second half. Now, I will say this. The Falcons defense did get the necessary stops they needed to in the second half, and they did have the Falcons in position to win that game, and they allowed the Falcons to go on that game time drive. So the Falcons defense did give the Falcons offense the opportunities they needed, but I still wish they would have given them more opportunities, and I think the Falcons defense is more to blame than Zach Robinson for their second half performance.
All right, so Dylan blaming the defense. They stunk it up in their second half, which I wholeheartedly agree. It was very frustrating watching that defense as a former defensive player. Oh my gosh.
Jarvis, I mean, you could have got in there and finished some of them tackles, man. That tackling was poor.
Only if he did a quarterback sneak, like because I have no athleticism right now. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if y'all know, man. I started while working out. I'm getting my life together. You know what I'm saying? I'm about to drop this weight, get it off me for good. And man, the amount of time it takes me to warm up now, it is absolutely ridiculous. So, yeah, if he would have did a quarterback sneak, I probably would have hold him down. You know what I'm saying? You said, what you say?
I said you had to do a little bit more stretching now than you had to do back in your younger days, huh?
I didn't stretch back in the day. So that's why I have to stretch for maybe like 30 minutes before I get warmed up nowadays. But anyway, let's get back on topic. But Aaron, I think, I know you kind of mentioned that, you weren't kind of a bigger fan of Zach Robinson, in that second half because, you understand what Bijan Robinson brings to the table. But, it seemed like Washington tried to load up on the run a little bit. They took a little personal in that first half about how he was running the football. But you still on board with saying, hey, man, you still should have stuck it up.
I mean, when you say blame Zach Robinson, I don't blame him in the sense of like he's the reason why the Falcons lost the game. That's crazy. But I do think along the lines of what Dylan said, like the run pass balance got a little out of whack, right? Yep. The Falcons run game was dominant in the first half. Their pass game was pretty iffy, really at best. Shaky. And then as Dylan said, like you look at those 9 plays before the Falcons basically got into the fourth quarter where they had to throw the football to try to win the game, 7 of those were passes, 2 of those were runs. And like to me, when you look at that balance, especially in that drive at the beginning of the fourth quarter, when the Falcons had just gone down, I think like 21-17 at that point in time, right? Mm-hmm. It's about 11 minutes left in the game. You still have time that you can run the football at this point down a score. And they seemingly got into this, like, I think Pennix had hit like his first 2 throws on that drive. And it felt like Zach Robinson was like, okay, he's in a rhythm now. Let's get to the passing game. And like this, I think has been an issue throughout the season with Zach Robinson, that there have been times where he's been a little bit too quick to abandon the run. There have been times where he's maybe been a little too conservative when it came to the run game, especially during that stretch of games when Kirk Cousins was a quarterback and throwing picks, and they were just like, we're just going to run the football and not do anything else. But I understand why he did that, given what Kirk was doing during that stretch of the season. And so, like, this has been an ongoing issue with Zach Robinson, and I don't feel like he got it right at the end of this game. And that was one of the reasons why the Falcons struggled to kind of sustain offense until the very end. But like Dylan said, you let Washington go on 2 7-minute scoring drives. Like, I have a bigger issue with
29
that.
plays to be
Yeah.
exact.
Great.
You know, I have a bigger issue with that than, hey, Zach Robinson probably could have ran the ball like 2 more times. You know, like that to me is a much bigger issue in why the Falcons, you know, fell into that hole and were in the position that they were in going into the fourth quarter than necessarily, hey, man, you know, could we have run the ball like 2 more times?
I think you bring up an interesting point, man. I want to ask both of you guys this, you know, kind of give me like a 30-second shot of how you feel about this. So for me, I feel like there's an identity crisis going on, you know, with this team, because, you know, you got the 11 personnel, you know, now we got the pistol, you know, we're running it now, and Zach gets to implement his stuff, his offense, what he wants to do. So kind of like just looking at a 50,000 foot view from an offensive play calling standpoint, do you all feel like Zach kind of reached the full potential of this offense in year one? Aaron?
No, I think you nailed it, Jarvis. It's really like, what is this team's identity? And at various points in the season, it was like, oh, well, you know, throwing deep passes to Darnell Mooney is their identity, or, you know, running the football is their identity. And it felt a little bit all over the place. And I think that's really one of those things that going into next season is going to be really important for Zach Robinson to really establish, like, what is the thing that, you know, when you play the Atlanta Falcons, you have to stop this or otherwise they're going to beat you. And I don't know if the Falcons have quite figured that out yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. At the beginning of the season, it felt like that the Falcons were dead. The Falcons and Zach Robinson were dead set on making sure Bijan Robinson touched the ball as much as he could. Kind of what Raheem said in the preseason. They were going to kind of use him in that Christian McCaffrey-like role, catching passes out of the backfield, handing them off, getting Bijan Robinson the ball in the best opportunities that they could. It felt like that was their identity the first few weeks of the season. Then Kirktober happened, and we all got happy when Kirk started swag surfing and talking about walking in traps and take over traps. And Zach Robinson was like, "Oh, Kirk Cousins is hot now. We about to fully ride Kirktober." And then they tried to take Kirktober and make it Kirk November, how you want to say it. And then Kirk started struggling, and then he fell off a cliff. And then they were like, "Oh, okay, hold. Now we got to go back to this ground game. Now we're gonna start grounding and pounding again." So It seems like once Kirk Cousins got into a rhythm, Zach Robinson tried to switch. Like, okay, we can be a passing team now. Let's do that. Let's see how that works out for us. And then it worked for a little bit, worked for about a month, and then it didn't work. And they took a little too long. Zach Robinson took a little too long to get back to what I think their identity should be, which is making sure Bijan Robinson is the focal point of this offense. And now it feels like they kind of gotten back to that as they try to ease Michael Pennix into his starting career. So I definitely feel like he hasn't touched on what the identity of this offense should be. So I think they went through identity crisis throughout this year. So to answer your question, yes, I don't think he's tapped into the full potential.
And, you know, and I'm not real big on coordinators being reactionary. You know, we experienced a lot of that with Jimmy Lake. You know, like, oh, y'all figured out the defense after the bye week, during the bye week. Okay, why you couldn't do it before? You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man, have some foresight, dog. Like, this is what you get paid big bucks to do. So yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm not into this is happening now. This is what we should start doing. I don't like it. I just don't like it. But guys, coming up next, Michael Pennix said there's some chemistry that needs to be worked on. Should this decision have been made a little sooner than later? We'll discuss that next. Locked On Sports Atlanta is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And guys, I like to go through like the press conferences from time to time and just kind of hear what the players say and kind of see where I can get a good gauge of what's going on. And there was one thing that just really piqued my little ears as I was listening to Michael Pennix, go through his little, questions and all that stuff and Q&A during the week. So one thing that I said that I thought was pretty interesting, he mentioned chemistry being the biggest thing that he's concerned about as far as the offense, because he was asked about whether or not he was surprised, anything that has surprised him since he's been the starter in these past couple of games. He was like, no, not really. I'm real big on chemistry. And I think that, and the only thing that kind of gets guys, in that chemistry wise, only way you can build that is actually going out there and playing games. Michael Pennix even went as far as to say, hey man, I've never thrown to these guys. Darnell Mooney, Drake, I've never thrown to these dudes. So with that being said, do you all feel, Dylan, that Raheem Morris should have made the decision to bench Kirk Cousins earlier?
I honestly think if it was going to be any earlier than it could have been the Raiders game. But Raheem Morris decided to give Kirk Cousins that one last straw, that one last gasp to bounce back and show that he could.
That was the my man notion right there.
Exactly.
He's still my man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna give him one more shot.
I'm figuring it out with him. I know he can still do it. Let's give him this one more chance. He could bounce back. And obviously didn't end up happening. They found out very quickly in that Raiders game, as the airman pointed out earlier, because they once they saw that, Kirk, he really not it with it. This is it for Kirk. They went to a very, very conservative game plan very quickly.
That was embarrassing. I'm sorry. Can I just say that? That was embarrassing.
Just real quick on that, it has never been clearer that you are trying to make sure your quarterback doesn't mess it up. It has never been so much clear that you are just hoping and praying that your quarterback doesn't make a mistake, and you are calling plays to help your quarterback not make a mistake. But to that point, I think if it was going to come any earlier, it would have been just that week earlier in that Raiders game. But like we said, Raheem decided to give Kirk that one last chance as a veteran QB they brought in for a lot of money. So I understand that as well too. So I don't blame Raheem for making the move when he did. I don't blame Raheem for giving Kirk that last chance against Vegas. So if it was going to be any earlier, it just would have been a week earlier. I don't like the thought of starting Michael Pennix Jr. in Minnesota against a Vikings defense that has been pretty much, I guess, right behind Denver, maybe the second best total defense in the league all year. And you could have said maybe the Chargers, but we were still hoping that Kirk Cousins could come out of that funk, and nobody expected Kirk to throw 4 interceptions and be that bad against the Chargers. So no, it could have been a week earlier, but I don't think it could have been any earlier than that.
Aaron, what say you, man? I know we were kind of defending Kirk, what I'm saying, on the football party. I don't know how you do. I know how you kind of maybe switch it up a little bit on Locked On Falcons. You know what I'm saying? Because you try to be the voice of reason. Because I know I was calling for Kirk's benching.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you were ready to go. You were ready to go.
Yeah, I'm ready to go, man. Like, y'all can't give me a peek of Michael Pennix, you know what I'm saying, in the spring, and I got a chance to see him at the Senior Bowl. I was like, look at that little shiny toy over there. That's gonna give me hope right there. That's gonna keep me on the narcotic of the Atlanta Falcons. You know what I'm saying? Like, but so yeah, I was on it super early, probably a little bit too early, but that's just me. I expect my expectations for a veteran quarterback, like you mentioned, are much higher. When you've been a 13-year vet, man, like you shouldn't be doing stuff, making rookie mistakes. And that's that rookie game plan that they came with the Raiders was the last straw for them. And I was sitting there upset with my hands crossed. But as far as you go, Aaron, like where do you sit as far as whether or not they should have benched him, and could they have benched him earlier in your mind?
No, I'm on the same page with Dylan. I think Kirk showed enough. Jarvis, you kind of nailed it. Like, you paid this man all that money because you believed that he was the guy. He was the leader. He was
up in the room, like you mentioned, man. Like, yeah. Was on board.
And so, like, that's why the Falcons seemingly gave him so many chances to sort of redeem himself until that Raiders game. And then it was very clear by, their actions that they were like, we're out on Kirk Cousins. And so I'm with Dylan. Like, if you were going to make that move, it would have happened after the Vikings game, not before the Vikings game, I think, at this point in time. But, like, I think this is less about, when the call to start Pennix is, and it's more about going back to some of the things we talked about during the summer, which is you didn't really give Pennix a lot of opportunities in the preseason. And obviously this whole Kirk was taking all the reps with the ones. And so there was really if you were going to build this sort of chemistry that would be paying off for the Falcons right now, I don't know if Pennix getting one more start against the Raiders would have made that much of a difference. But I do think him maybe getting some more work with the starting receivers during training camp, during OTAs, during the preseason would have benefited him at that stage in the season. And so again, we've talked a lot about, did Raheem do Pennix a disservice by only getting him 15 snaps in a preseason game and whatnot. But I do feel like those are the opportunities where you really have a chance to, when you have a relatively low risk, you're not dealing with all the in-season stuff. You have an opportunity to get those reps then. And so I think if we're going to play that revisionist history, to me, going back to July and August is really where I would be a lot more critical of how Raheem managed Pennix and his reps than necessarily him not benching Kirk soon enough during the season.
I think you make a great point, because especially if you have a 36-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles injury. So there was probably a notion, from a plan standpoint. I know you had a plan as to when he was going to play. I think it was maybe 2 years. That's where it should have been for me. But if he gets hurt, if he re-injures the Achilles, and especially when this was his most significant injury in his entire career. So when you have a guy coming off of that, it makes sense for you to get some reps with the ones during the summertime, because hey man, I get the whole chemistry part from Kirk, but Kirk is a vet. It's easy for them to kind of find that chemistry because he knows exactly what he wants, and he's verbalizing that to guys like Kyle Pitts who couldn't figure out a way to listen on a consistent basis and not run his routes like he's supposed to, and just kind of moseying on through life, as if he's just talent and greatness is going to fall into his lap. Sorry, my bad. I got off on a little tangent there, but I want to kind of shift a little bit as far as this game, against the Carolina Panthers. Now, Bryce Young, has gone through a lot, to say the least. Getting benched for Andy Dalton, the Falcons, are going to play against Bryce Young for the first time now, and we understand the gravity of the Falcons getting a win on Sunday against, the Carolina Panthers. Now that Bryce Young is back in the starter seat, he's starting to look somewhat like a guy that could potentially be the face of your franchise. So for you, Aaron, how important is it for Michael Pennix to outplay Bryce Young in Mercedes-Benz Stadium?
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and be like, it's the end of the world if Michael Pennix is the lesser of the two quarterbacks on Sunday. Sure. But you would feel a lot better if Michael Pennix looks good, because as you said, you watch Bryce Young these last couple of weeks. He's starting to look like the guy that a lot of people thought was the consensus number one quarterback in the previous year's draft. We've seen what CJ Stroud has done. We've seen the ups and downs of Anthony Richardson. We've certainly seen a lot of downs and not too many ups with
Mostly
Will
downs. Mostly
downs. But I feel like these last couple of weeks with Bryce Young, he's dealing with a lot of pressure, but he's being able to deliver in those situations, and that was something that he did not do as a rookie, dealing with like a historic level of bad offensive line play. It's the last year's Panthers team versus last year's Giants team got to go in the record as the two worst offensive lines in the history of sports. But you're seeing him being able to overcome that a lot more this season, and that's that sort of ability that you saw why he was so highly liked at Alabama and whatnot. And so I'm not sitting here going Pennix has to do that. He has to go out there and look like a guy, how many starts Bryce Young has at this point in time, 30 or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. He needs to look like a 30 start veteran at this point in time. But you would feel a lot better if Michael Pennix comes out ahead of Bryce Young, given all the ups and downs that Bryce Young has gone through so far in his NFL career.
Yeah, I'm with you, Aaron. He doesn't have to look head and shoulders above better than Bryce Young, but it would be nice to see him continue to do the things that we've seen him do. Continue to have that, to throw that dart ball in there and make those window throws and show a little bit of improvement. As far as we all know, he missed some throws against the Commanders. That Bijan throw obviously stood out. That 1-2, I believe it was Darnell Mooney in the end zone, either Darnell or Drake in the end zone. So showing that touch, that improved touch on the ball a little bit on some of those throws that he missed in the Commanders game, making some of those throws. So just continue to show improvement in the areas he needs to show improvement in, not necessarily out dueling Bryce Young and, going deep ball for deep ball with Bryce Young, or, running for, however many yards and doing all that. So like I said, he doesn't have to look head and shoulders above Bryce Young, but he has to look like the competent quarterback, and he has to continue to be on that projection that he has been on in these past two starts to show that, okay, this is looking like our guy. Okay, the Panthers can, have their guy, but this is our guy right here, and we know this is our guy for sure. We already know. So again, as long as he doesn't regress, to me, I think that's perfectly fine. I don't need him to necessarily, if Bryce Young throws for 275 and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, I don't need Michael Pennix Jr. to throw for 320 and 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. I don't necessarily need that. I just need him to play right.
I'm sorry, my bad, D. I need all that, man. But continue.
I would love to see it. But I just don't want it to make it seem like it's a competition to where, whatever Bryce Young's final stats is, Michael Pennix Jr.'s stat line has to be better than his. As long as he does what he needs to do and does what the Falcons are asking him to do and making the throws that he's supposed to make, I'm gonna be cool with that, and I'm gonna be able to ride out like that.
Can I piggyback on what Dylan was saying real quick? Because the Panthers are the worst run defense in the NFL. They've given up 200 rushing yards in each of the last 5 games. Last time the Falcons played them, Falcons had 198 rushing yards. They actually had 200 before the kneel downs. That's basically what brought it down under 200. Like I sit here and I go, don't get cute, Zach Robinson. Just run the football. You can run the football for 700 yards against this Panthers team. That's why I sit here with Dylan saying you don't need to have Michael Pennix go out there and throw for 300 yards to win this game. You can have him go 13 for 17 for 135 yards, and Bijan has 182 yards. Tyler Algier has 110 yards. You can have that type of game plan, and that's why I would love to see Michael Pennix go out there and sling it 40 times and outduel Bryce Young and throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. I would love to see that. That always is fun to see, but you don't have to do that. Don't get cute. Just run the football, and you'll be fine.
Give it to Bijan, baby. Give it to Bijan.
Give it to Bijan, but we're going to give it to the defense next, guys, because we want to talk about how we can make Bryce Young look like he regressed. First, got to let you know, this episode of the Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by Gametime. Folks, let me tell y'all something, man. Gametime is where you need to be in your life, man, because I just love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending that Outkast concert a while back, guys. I don't know if y'all understand how big of a fan I am of Outkast. It was absolutely amazing. You can go to concerts like that and have that same feeling that I had by going to Gametime. Now they even made it easier to get your tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. The feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You don't want to waste all your time doing that. So recently, let me tell y'all something, man. With this Falcons game, coming up, I was looking for tickets, trying to figure out what's going on, where can I get tickets for this game time out for my wife? Because, I'll be there, cover the game and all that good stuff. So I found amazing deals. Could even see the view from my seat before you buying it. So you won't be sitting behind, who, and Panthers fans and all that stuff. So don't have to worry about all that stuff, man. Make sure you get those tickets on the home side. The super deal was particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. That is the big thing about Gametime. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front. No fees and all that stuff at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app create an account. Use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code Locked On for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Because what time is it? It's game time. Yeah, it's one of the things that I really have been excited about on this as this come down the stretch for the regular season post-bye is how this defense has played. And as far when it comes to just making the necessary adjustments and Raheem Morris getting involved, because it seems like it's just been blasphemous what I've been reading from certain people about Raheem Morris and how he is worthless and he should be fired. I'm just like, man, calm down, man. Y'all just going crazy right now. The man is an excellent defensive coordinator. He got some time management issues last week. Hopefully he figures that thing out, going forward. But the adjustments that have been made by he and Jimmy Lake, I feel like has kind of really saved the season because of, with how Kirk was playing, it just couldn't really just imagine if that defense wasn't getting to the quarterback the way Kirk was playing. We would not be having a conversation about them at least having a slither of chance of getting in the playoffs. So Aaron, what do you need to see from this defense, on Sunday at Mercedes-Benz in order for those guys to get it done?
It's the same thing that we've been seeing since the bye week. Is that pass rush getting home, getting after Bryce Young? As I mentioned before, Bryce Young has done a much better job navigating pressure these last couple of weeks since he's gotten back in the lineup. So it's not as simple as it was last year where it's like, hey, you get pressure on Bryce Young, you're going to get like 8 sacks in a game. I think they did give up like 5 sacks last week and like 6 sacks to the Cowboys a couple of weeks ago. But it is one of those things where it's like, if this defense front can get home on the quarterback and get Bryce Young on the ground, that's what I want to see. The concerns with the Falcons defense really since the bye week has been just a few too many breakdowns in the secondary. And obviously the Minnesota game stands out sort of in that regard. But to me, the challenge I think for this Falcons defense that Carolina is going to bring is you're seeing Bryce Young getting a lot more comfortable with his receivers, with Adam Thielen, with Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker and whatnot. And I watched Adam Thielen kind of go off last week against Tampa Bay, and I'm like, D. Alford, you've been very up and down these last couple of weeks.
Very nice.
I've seen you play really well, and I've seen you play really terrible.
Yep.
And it's like, I need you to not be terrible this week because you're going to be going up. Probably,
I need some balance. Need to balance that thing out, baby.
the number one on that offense, which is probably Adam Thielen at this point in time, and I don't want to see Adam Thielen at age 48 or whatever he is at this point in his career catching like 8 passes for like 120 yards. I'm like, this is not something that we should be seeing at this point in time. So I like where the front is. I have a little bit of concerns with the secondary just because we know that they're good. We know they're capable of playing at a high level. We've seen it these last couple of weeks, but we've also seen them be kind of terrible these last couple of weeks. And so like what you get with the secondary is just kind of a grab bag every single week. And that to me is my main concern going up against this Panthers team. But I think the front can certainly take a lot of pressure off of those guys if they can get Bryce Young on the ground.
To piggyback off of that, Aaron, I want to see the same thing. I want to see the offer show that improvement and please show us some consistency in that secondary. Obviously, besides AJ Terrell, Mike Hughes has been solid too, pretty much all season long. I also want to see this Falcons run defense continue to play well too, especially when you're not going to have to, because if I'm not mistaken, Chuba Hubbard's out for the rest of the year, right?
He's on IR, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so with Chuba Hubbard not being in there, because we know Chuba Hubbard, before he got injured, he was light in the
league. Get them boys problems.
He was killing folks, man. He was out there running roughshod over the whole NFL. But with Chuba Hubbard not being in the game, I do want to see the Falcons run defense also step up as well and kind of force the Panthers in those 2nd and long, 3rd and long situations and not be able to, stay in those short down the distances. And that way your pass rush can continue to get home and get to the quarterback like they have been doing since the bye week. So I also want to see this Falcons run defense step up with no Chuba Hubbard. And Aaron, like you said, the absolute last thing I better see on Sunday, I do not want to see Adam Thielen attempt to Gritty in the end zone because he caught a touchdown pass. Because, man, That's a scary sight within itself. It's some type of scary. Seeing Adam Thielen catch a touchdown pass against the Falcons is another type of scary to see him try to attempt to do a gritty after he caught a touchdown pass against the Falcons. So let's just not have that situation happen either. And Xavier Legette, to your point as well, he's been coming into his own in his rookie campaign. So definitely the Falcons pass defense has to be better. D-All for Mike Hughes, you don't want those breakdowns. AJ Terrell can continue to do his thing and build upon a very good performance against Terry McLaurin, who wasn't very scary against AJ Terrell. And again, this Falcons run defense shine and show that, okay, you don't have Chuba Hubbard, you don't have your main dog. Guess what? You're going to pay for that. You're not going to be able to do nothing against us without him.
Yeah, man, I'm not into the Falcons secondary being giving out DEI jobs. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just going to keep it funky.
Yes, that's real.
Look at it. I wish I could see it. The people who listen to audio, I wish you all could see this man's face right now. Yeah, I said it. Yep, I sure did. But yeah, I'm with both of you all, man. I really feel like this defense is really in a space where, like, they have to continue to build on what we've seen these past few weeks. Like, there was a blip on the screen, you know, against the Vikings, but you know, overall, this defense has been playing pretty doggone solid, you know, from a connectivity standpoint, right? Like, the defensive line starting to get pressure. Of course, you're going to may see a pick six. Like, that's possible. You know what I'm saying? Quarterbacks going to make mistakes when they're forced to make quick decisions. And just from a Bryce Young standpoint, like, he's been one of the guys who've been the most blitzed, most pressured, you know, in the NFL, you know, just from a pressure, from a blitz percentage standpoint. So I'll be interested to see how he's able to kind of handle that going forward. But guys, like, this is the segment that I've been waiting to get to, because I don't know if you all know, like, I am born and raised from Atlanta, and you know, Lord knows I remember when, you know, all the people came from, you know, Hurricane Katrina, you know what I'm saying, much respect. A lot of people lost their lives and all that good stuff. But oh my gosh, when y'all came down here to Atlanta, y'all start acting a plum fool. We're not going to get into it today because I have a Magic City story that, you know, I might tell if y'all ask me, you know, but you got to ask me about it. I'm not going to tell it because, you know, Aaron basically restricted me from any Magic City stores. So all the guys who want to hear that story, you know what I'm saying?
I was just being a prophet. I figured it would come up at some point. That's all.
I'm about to say, I got to hear the story now. I got to hear the story.
Right. Maybe I'll tell a story on the other side. Make sure you guys stick around because I'm going to talk about rooting for the Saints and whether that is egregious or not. So stick around. Wrapping things up on the Atlanta football party right here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. If you haven't subscribed or liked our YouTube channel, what the heck are you waiting on? We're almost at 13,000 subscribers. We're waiting on you to come over there. And if you don't listen to us on audio, I need you to leave us that 5-star review. Like, come on, that's the only way people find out about the program. Because, you know, you listen to greatness, why not share? You know, that's where we are. You know, even if I don't share a Magic City story because Aaron Freeman told me that I should not, and I couldn't do that. So, yeah, you know, that's where we are. But, you know, the Falcons have found themselves in a situation. Well, you know, a little situation. They lost against the Commanders. They have to win this game against the Carolina Panthers. And now, in order to get into the playoffs, the Falcons have to depend on the Saints to beat the Bucs, who just thrashed the Panthers. You know what I'm saying? Well, I almost put up a 50-piece almost last week. And yeah, so that means, Dylan, that you're a Saints fan this week?
I guess so. I guess the Falcons will let me no choice. I gotta root for the dang Aints this week, man. I gotta root for the dang Aints because I want to see the Falcons in the postseason more than I want to see the Aints lose another game. So I got to be an Aints fan this week. Like Aaron said earlier in the program, whether it's Spencer Rattler or whoever the heck starting for the Aints this week, I don't know at this point. I guess it's Spencer Rattler, but I hope he channels. I said this on my radio show, the Hometown Take. I think it was a couple of days ago. I said, I don't know if y'all remember back. I don't remember what year it was, but it was Baker Mayfield. I think when he first, it might have been when he was with the Browns. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong. He was with the Browns when he was with the Bucs a couple years ago, and he said, after he beat the Falcons, he said, I woke up feeling dangerous. I need Spencer Rattler or whoever starting for the Aints to wake up feeling dangerous. Channel that inner Baker Mayfield that day because he went out and balled that day. And I need Spencer Rattler to go out and ball and go out and beat the Bucs so that the Falcons can get into the postseason. And so we can, because I do feel like if the Falcons somehow do make it into the postseason, I think depending on the matchup, I know the Rams will be tough, and I think that would be the likely matchup if the Falcons were to get in. That would be tough, but I feel like the Falcons could maybe get that job done. We'll see. They just haven't been in the postseason since, 2017? So I just want to see the Falcons in the postseason again, whether they're a first-round exit or not. I just want to see them in there. So I guess I got to be an Aints fan for a day. It won't kill me. It's going to hurt me, but it won't kill me.
Aaron Freeman, the Falcons prophet, host of Locked On Falcons, all things Falcons, RIP, you know what I'm saying, to Falcon fans, you know what I'm saying? Like, RIP, man, RIP, I understand that. I feel you. But are you in the space, like Dylan, to say, you know what? I'm going to put my Aints hate aside this week and root for New Orleans?
No. And the reason why.
Okay, yeah, come on with it. Yeah, I think I like this.
Like I said, I made peace with the fact that the Saints aren't going to win this game, right? Like, it's just like I'm just going into the game knowing that they're not going to win the game. Now, what I will say this: if we get to halftime of that game, and we're halftime of the Bucks, the Falcons Panthers game, and halftime of the Saints Bucks game, and I'm looking at the score, and I see the Saints are like up 21-17, then I might change, and I'll be like, oh, there's actually some hope. And again, the caveat, of course, is the Falcons are not like losing their game like 30-7, which we know the Falcons,
which could happen.
Which could happen.
Unfortunately, I hate to say that, but it probably could happen.
Yeah. So, like, if we get to that point, halftime, so like around 2:30 Sunday or whatever it is, and the Falcons are up and the Saints are up, I might switch. I might jump on the bandwagon for the Saints for the second half of that game. But at no point do I have any expectation that the Saints will be able to pull this off and do the thing that they need to do, and the Falcons do the thing that they need to do in order to make the playoffs. So I'm just like, no, I'm not going to be rooting for the Saints just because why get my hopes up for something that I know is not going to happen. But again, with that caveat that maybe around halftime, I might switch loyalties.
You know what? I think it's reason why you say that, and I wholeheartedly on board with you. I'm not going to be looking at that game and getting involved and all that stuff. I'll be at Mercedes-Benz Stadium covering the game, but I'm not about to go to my little special website and pull up Bucs Saints and be keeping the tabs on what's going on. I will not do that to myself because I understand that a falconing could happen and the game could be over with 8 minutes to go in the first quarter and the Bucs could be up 30-0. Like that could happen given the situation and given the Falcons needing the Saints to beat the Bucs. So yeah, man, I'm with y'all. I'm with you on. I'm not about to do that because more than likely there's a possibility that the Falcons could be losing or down to the Panthers at some point. And you know what? I'm not going to do that to myself on Sunday, because, stress-free days have from 1 to 4, they tend to be far and few between, when it comes to watching and covering this team and being involved as a native, you know what I'm saying? Like, and being a fan of this team, like, see all those 3 things, like I get confused sometimes on Sundays, man. It's just like, dude, gotta snap out of it. But yeah, man, I appreciate you guys, for hopping on today. Dylan, host of the Hometown Take on 1990 The Game from 5 to 6 a.m.
That's right.
If you're an early riser, man, check my boy out, man. He's giving you the Hometown Take. Hey, that's the name of the show. So obviously it's gonna be Hometown Take. And Aaron Freeman, host of Locked On Falcons, who always on the Atlanta Football Party, who always joining. Y'all make sure y'all check him out and make him your second listen a day after you check us out, man. You know what I'm saying? Or you can switch it up. It don't matter, man, because we all part of the same family, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.